Backstab was our first song we ever wrote.
You started out as singers.
Yeah.
And you were together then.
I feel like I did 18 years ago. It still hurts. And I feel like somebody should be held accountable.
Do you remember the hit song, Ain't No Stopping Us Now? It made people feel unstoppable back in the day. But what happened to the singers McFadden and Whitehead?
I know we got a long, long way to go.
Their story took a heartbreaking turn. Why did their lives change so much? What went wrong for these talented artists? Let's delve in.
Backstab was our first song we ever wrote.
You started out as singers.
Yeah.
And you were together then.
They met as kids in a North Philly ghetto. Gene McFadden was born on January 28, 1949, in Atlanta, South Carolina. When he was young, his family moved to Philadelphia. John Whitehead, on the other hand, was born on July 10, 1948, in Philadelphia. These two met as teenagers in the 1960s while going to Edison High School in North Philadelphia. The neighborhood was tough, but Gene and John didn't let that hold them back. They both loved music and became friends. Soon they formed a music group called the Epsilons with a few other friends.
We were together
That's
since
right.
we were 3 years old.
I see.
And we just groomed ourselves.
After graduating high school in 1967, McFadden and Whitehead performed with the Epsilons. The group included members like Alan Beatty and possibly Lloyd Parks, who later joined Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes. One day they caught the attention of Otis Redding's bandleader. Otis Redding was a huge star in soul music. Gene was holding some of Otis's records when the bandleader asked if they wanted to meet Otis. They were so excited. Later that evening, they even got the chance to sing for him.
And it makes it easy.
Impressed, Redding asked them to join his show, known as the Otis Redding Review. Gene, along with his bandmates John and Alan, traveled with Otis, performing one-night shows across the country. But life on the road wasn't easy. After a year of endless travel, the young men grew tired and decided they wanted to go back home. When they told Otis, he encouraged them to stay a bit longer. He even mentioned that he had a new song he wanted them to record. However, they were firm about going home. So Otis found someone else for the song. That person was Arthur Conley, and the song was Sweet Soul Music, which became a huge hit. Ironically, even though they planned to go home, Gene and John stayed a little longer and ended up singing backup vocals for Arthur's recording. Not long after, Otis Redding tragically passed away in a plane crash in December 1967. Without his guidance, the Epsilons struggled to find their place. They released a single called The Echo in 1968, but it didn't take off. Eventually, they returned to Philadelphia, unsure of what the future held. Their band, the Epsilons, also changed. Al Beatty left the group, and new members joined them. McFadden and Whitehead tried something new. They brought in two new members, James Knight and Lloyd Parks, and rebranded themselves as Talk of the Town. They released two singles, Little Bit of Your Lovin' and Don't Be So Mean. These songs caught some attention, but didn't make a huge impact. Still, McFadden and Whitehead weren't ready to give up. They started working with famous songwriters and producers Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. These two were the minds behind Philadelphia International Records, a label inspired by Motown, and they believed in McFadden and Whitehead's talent. They hoped for success, but things didn't go as planned. At first, Whitehead worked as the mailboy for Gamble and Huff, delivering letters and messages around the office. But he paid attention to how things worked in the studio. He and McFadden kept writing songs, and soon they had a breakthrough. One night in a small kitchen in Philadelphia, they sat at the table, determined to turn their struggles into something good. That night, they wrote a song called Backstabbers. John believed the song had potential, so he decided to share it with someone important, Leon Huff. The next day, John brought Gene to work and waited outside Huff's office. They were nervous but hopeful. Huff eventually came out to grab a soda, and John saw his chance. He didn't waste time. he started reading the song's lyrics out loud right there by the soda machine. As John reached the chorus, Huff smiled, realizing the song was something special. That moment changed everything. Backstabbers became a hit for the OJs and was the first gold single for Philadelphia International Records. It also helped create the famous Philadelphia sound.
Backstab was our first song we ever wrote.
You started out as singers.
Yeah.
You were together then.
After this success, Gene and John kept working hard. Their group, Talk of the Town, released songs like Super Groover, All Night Mover, and Bumpin' Boogie. While these songs weren't huge hits, they became favorites among collectors. Gene and John's biggest talent, however, was writing songs for others. One of their most famous works was Wake Up Everybody, Part 1. They wrote it with Victor Karstoffen for Harold Melvin, Teddy Pendergrass, and Lou Rawls. The song had a strong message, encouraging people to pay attention to the world's problems. Whitehead later said the lyrics felt like they came from a higher power, as if the words were meant to be. Through their determination and talent, Gene and John became legends of the Philadelphia music scene. Both McFadden and Whitehead had struggles with money. Despite creating a hit that made millions dance, they faced financial troubles. Music can be a tricky business, and they didn't always see the financial rewards they deserved. This led to disagreements and even lawsuits as they tried to get their fair share of earnings from their music. These legal battles cost them a lot of money and caused stress, which affected their careers. On top of legal troubles, they struggled with financial problems. Even though they were popular and had a big hit song, managing money was difficult for them. The music industry is not always fair, and many artists find it hard to make a stable income. McFadden and Whitehead were no exception, and their financial struggles added pressure on both their careers and personal lives. To escape from this pressure, they both relied on drugs. McFadden and Whitehead also faced issues with drug addiction. Unfortunately, addiction is a hard battle, and it affected both of them deeply. Struggling with addiction hurts their health, their personal relationships, and their ability to focus on their music. While they tried to manage their addiction, the challenges of staying clean and focusing on their careers were not easy. John Whitehead, he faced serious trouble when he was convicted of tax evasion. This legal issue led to a short prison sentence for Whitehead, which became a difficult chapter in his life. Despite this setback, Whitehead did not give up on his music. In 1988, after getting out of prison, Whitehead released a solo album titled I Need Money Bad. The album was a chance for him to express himself and share his feelings about the tough times he was going through. It wasn't a big hit, but it showed his determination to keep creating music, even during hard times.
I need money back.
Later, in the 1990s, Whitehead reunited with his musical partner, Gene McFadden. They began performing together again at corporate events and nostalgia shows, where fans of their older songs could hear them perform live. These shows brought back memories of their classic hits and allowed the duo to reconnect with their audience, back to their music career. By 1978, McFadden and Whitehead were doing very well. They had written or helped produce many hit songs, earning them 22 gold records, 2 platinum albums, and 2 Grammy nominations.
I know we got a long, long way to go.
But they were itching to get back into the studio and record music for themselves. As Whitehead put it, we had been helping other people rocket to the moon. At first, Gamble and Huff didn't like the idea. They thought McFadden and Whitehead should stick to writing and producing, but eventually they agreed to let the duo record one song. That's when McFadden and Whitehead created their legendary hit, Ain't No Stoppin' Us Now, which was intended for the OJs initially, but the duo decided to record themselves.
Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move.
When the session started, Whitehead didn't have anything except for the title. When they put the mic on, I started making up words that instant. It all just came out in one take, like a godsend. It was so exciting that we just let the song keep playing for 10, 15 minutes. This song wasn't just a hit, it became an anthem. It was a message to the world that McFadden and Whitehead were here to stay. It was number 1 on Billboard's R&B chart and peaked at 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. It sold 8 million records globally, and at the 22nd Annual Grammy Awards, the duo was nominated for Best R&B Vocal Performance by a Duo, Group, or Chorus. Later that year, their R&B debut album, McFadden and Whitehead, which included that signature piece, peaked at number 5 on the R&B album charts and number 23 on the Billboard 200. On May 25, 1979, something happened when the music duo McFadden and Whitehead were in Chicago promoting their music. They were scheduled to fly to Los Angeles on American Airlines, Flight 191 that evening. However, at the last minute, they agreed to do one more music interview in Chicago. Because of this, they decided to change their flight to the next day, May 26th. This decision turned out to be incredibly lucky. The flight they originally planned to take, American Airlines Flight 191, crashed shortly after takeoff from Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Tragically, all 258 passengers and crew members on board died in the accident.
Chicago's International O'Hare Airport, May the 25th, 1979, and America's worst air disaster.
McFadden and Whitehead's last-minute choice to stay for one more interview saved their lives. What started as a routine promotion day turned into a moment of fate. This decision allowed them to keep making the music they loved, including their hit song. 3 years later, in 1982, the album Movin' On was released on Capitol Records label, and I Heard It in a Love Song was a top 30 R&B hit. Altogether, the duo wrote more than 400 songs, including a string of hits that became the pillar of the 1970s sound of Philadelphia. They could not replicate that success in later decades. Gene McFadden's life came to a heartbreaking end after a battle with cancer. What made it even sadder was that his music partner had also passed away just 2 years earlier. In 2004, Gene received terrible news. He was diagnosed with cancer in his liver and lungs. For someone so full of life and energy, it was a shock to everyone who knew him. Gene decided to fight the disease with all his strength. He went through chemotherapy and radiation treatments, hoping they would help. But the treatments were very tough on his body. Even with all the pain and struggles, Gene stayed hopeful and brave. His family and friends admired his courage. For 2 years, Gene tried hard to stay strong. But over time, the cancer took its toll. By early 2006, he spent most of his time at home, surrounded by the people he loved. On January 27, 2006, Gene passed away, just 1 day before his 57th birthday. Gene left behind his wife, Barbara, and 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. His death was a huge loss to his family and the music world. He and his partner had made unforgettable songs that brought joy to so many. Losing them both within such a short time felt like the end of something special.
For almost 20 years, a Philadelphia family has been waiting for answers, for justice. But they won't give up. They're hoping one day police will be able to find out who their loved one, John Whitehead.
For John Whitehead, he was just 55 years old when he died. That day, he was outside his home working on a car when 2 men with guns suddenly appeared. They shot him several times before running away. Sadly, John did not survive. The police believe John was not the intended target. They think it was a case of mistaken identity, meaning the shooters thought he was someone else. This has made his death even harder for his family to accept.
I feel like I did 18 years ago. It still hurts. And I feel like somebody should be held accountable.
Nearly 20 years later, John's family is still grieving and searching for answers. His daughter, Lakia, says the pain hasn't gone away. It still hurts, she shared. I feel the same way I did 18 years ago. Somebody needs to be held accountable. Lakia is upset that no one has been arrested for her father's, but she refuses to give up hope. She believes that one day justice will be served. Philadelphia Police Captain Jason Smith is hopeful too. He shared that new technology and resources are helping police reopen old cases like John's. These tools might finally lead to the capture of the people who killed John. John's close friend, Anthony Williams, also feels the loss deeply. He described John as a brother. Anthony believes in karma, the idea that bad actions eventually catch up with people. Every one of those guys who did things like this, they got too, Anthony said. He believes those who hurt others will face consequences sooner or later. John Whitehead wasn't just a gifted singer. In his later years, he found peace by converting to Islam in 1996. This decision gave him a deeper purpose in life. After his death, he was buried at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Philadelphia. His family and friends still visit his grave to honor his memory. Even though nearly 2 decades have passed, John's loved ones haven't stopped hoping for justice. His death left an open wound, but his family believes that one day, the truth will come out, and those responsible will be held accountable. Until then, they continue to keep his memory alive and fight for the justice he deserves.
It's not like I'm around feeling like, oh, we're going to find out who did this. It's 18 years later, and, but I still have hope.
John Whitehead was not only a talented artist who was mysteriously and after so many years, there have just been several speculations and theories. So many musicians have tragically died under mysterious circumstances. Take Sam Cooke, for example, who was an amazing singer and songwriter, known for his smooth voice and hits like "A Change Is Gonna Come."
But I'm afraid to die.
Sadly, his life was cut short in a tragic and puzzling way. On December 11th, 1964, Cooke was shot at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. This motel was not a fancy place. It had a reputation that didn't match Cooke's superstar status. His death raised many questions, and many people believe there's more to the story than what the police told us. That night, Cooke had been enjoying dinner at Martoni's, a popular spot for Hollywood stars. He was there with friends, laughing and having a good time. Cooke was in a good mood, even showing off a large amount of cash he had made from recent concerts. But things took a dark turn when he met a young woman named Elisa Boyer. They left the restaurant and ended up at the Hacienda Motel around 2:35 a.m., where they checked in as if they were married. What happened next is still unclear. Boyer claimed that Cooke tried to attack her and that she was scared for her life. She said she ran out of the room and called the police, saying she had been kidnapped. When the police arrived, they found Cooke's body. He had been shot in the chest, and the motel's manager, Bertha Franklin, claimed she shot him in self-defense. The police ruled it a justifiable homicide, but many friends and family members of Cooke disagreed. Critics have pointed out several problems with Franklin's story. For one, she shot Cooke with a .22 caliber gun, but she owned a .32 caliber pistol. Additionally, there was a strange bump on Cooke's head, which suggested he had been beaten. Franklin claimed that after shooting Cooke, she used a broom handle to hit him. This raised eyebrows because if she was really scared, why would she drop a loaded gun to use a stick? Moreover, guests at the motel said they didn't hear any gunshots or screams that night, which seemed odd given the violent events described. Friends of Cooke believe that he was set up. They think Boyer may have been working with the motel manager to rob him. The Hacienda Motel was known for attracting shady characters, and it seems unlikely that a man of Cooke's status would choose to stay there. He had many other options, so why did he go to such a place? This has led some to think he was lured there under false pretenses. In a documentary about Cooke's death, forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril H. Wecht argued that Cooke was not a threat when he was shot. He was in a sport coat and nothing else, meaning he had no weapon. This perspective further challenges the idea that Franklin was truly acting in self-defense. Many who knew Cooke well cannot believe he would act violently. They remember him as a gentle person, not someone who would attack a woman. Etta James, a famous singer, described seeing Cooke's body at his funeral. She claimed he had been badly beaten and had injuries that were not mentioned in the official autopsy report. This discrepancy has caused many to wonder if Cooke was killed somewhere else and then moved to the motel. There are even theories suggesting his business manager, Alan Klein, might have been involved because he stood to gain from Cooke's death. However, there's no solid evidence to back up these claims. The investigation into Cooke's death was quick and seems incomplete. Many believe that the police didn't take it seriously because Cooke was a black man and his life didn't seem to matter to them. Muhammad Ali, a close friend of Cooke's, pointed out that if Cooke were a white star like Frank Sinatra, the investigation would have been much more thorough. Cooke's sister, Agnes, has been outspoken about her disbelief in the official story. She insists that her brother would never have checked into a cheap motel like the Hacienda. She described him as a classy man who wouldn't have put himself in that situation. Many people in the black community feel the same way. They don't believe Cooke's death happened as reported. Instead, they suspect there was a deeper conspiracy at play. The mystery of Sam Cooke's death still lingers today. Many of his fans, friends, and family members believe the truth has not been revealed. They want answers and justice for a man who made a lasting impact on music and civil rights.
We're putting ourselves together, we're polishing up our act.
Back to McFadden and Whitehead. They might not have been in the spotlight of mainstream media, but their music made a huge impact. Soul music fans still celebrate their talent, and their songs continue to bring joy to people around the world. Even though they aren't always talked about in the news, their influence in music is undeniable. May McFadden and Whitehead rest in peace, and may their families keep receiving the royalties from their amazing work. Their music lives on forever in the hearts of soul music lovers. The duo created timeless music that has inspired fans and other artists for decades. Their songs have been sampled, remixed, and covered by big names like Jay-Z, Mary J. Blige, Luther Vandross, and Will Smith. This shows how their work goes beyond soul music, reaching people from all kinds of music genres. Their biggest hit, Ain't No Stoppin' Us Now, is more than just a song. It's an anthem of hope and strength. It has been used in movies, commercials, sports events, and even political campaigns. The message of the song is about resilience and never giving up, which is why it has inspired so many groups fighting for justice and change. It's the kind of song people play when they need to feel empowered and motivated. In 2016, a court decision allowed the families of McFadden and Whitehead to keep control of their song catalog. This means their families still earn money whenever their songs are played or used. It's a way to honor the hard work these two men put into their music and to keep their legacy alive. One of their last songs, Show Me the Money, was released after they passed away in 2009. In 2017, McFadden and Whitehead were inducted into the Philadelphia Music Walk of Fame, a well-deserved honor for their incredible contributions to soul and R&B music. Their music will always remind us of their talent and the love they poured into their work.